Okay. Cool. Right. It's been an interesting couple of days in sports since I didn't record anything yesterday, but since I last recorded. We've seen Usain Bolt released by the Gold Coast Mariners. The Gold Coast Mariners have come out and said we're going to need third party support to get a contract for about 200,000 Australian dollars. And the Australian FA weren't forthcoming, and the talks broke down. And now he's been released from his pre-season trial there. But he did play games and he did score goals, but his skill set is lacking that many professional football players would have. Talking point there. Obviously, we saw that the heated Edinburgh Derby where Neil Lennon was hit by an object from the crowd, which would transpire to be a pound coin. Again, Scottish football having an issue with fan violence and fan misbehaviour, which seems to be more common in Scottish football than any other league in Western Europe, as far as I'm aware. Regularly getting the press for all the wrong reasons, which is damaging for the sport in Scotland. We've seen Kevin De Bruyne limp off with an injury, and how serious is that? We shall wait and see. It could be a recurrence of his knee injury, and if that is the case, that could pose a problem for Guardiola and City in the next month or so. They have a very busy fixture list, 5 games in 13 days. They're going to need as many players as possible. De Bruyne out is going to stretch that midfield depth a little bit. It also depends on some of the fringe players, like Ben Foden, for example. If he gets a chance, or Phil Foden, I think it is. Yeah, Phil Foden, getting a chance at running the side because he's showing all the talent. And I think if he doesn't get a run in City this season, he needs to go out on loan or be sold. I honestly believe that. Plays football elsewhere because he's not getting the opportunity, which I think is insane. Guardiola was known for promoting youth from the academy at Barcelona and Bayern. He doesn't seem to be doing it as much at City. That change in tack from Guardiola, is that just summing up what English football's all about? Too many overseas or older players clinging on in the Premier League. We shall see. Tottenham, I think, are my dark horses for the League Cup. They have to win silverware with this squad, otherwise they risk this squad and the manager leaving or being lured away from what currently is Wembley, but White Hart Lane. And I'll do a video on that later. Very interesting lot in the football. In the rugby union, England, again, injury crisis going into a test series. They had an injury crisis in the Six Nations. They're having an injury crisis now. And we can debate a whole raft of things, but is it Eddie Jones's coaching methods? Is it the amount of rugby these players are playing? The domestic and international season, are they playing too many games? Are they not being rotated enough? So England, injury crisis yet again. Who's playing at fly half? The lack of Cipriani could come home to roost, possibly. Are they moving Ford and Farrell around? Yes, they have changed their combinations in the fly half inside centre position again. So that's under criticism. I got the Rugby League at Anfield this weekend as well. And is Anfield the right stadium for a Rugby League international? We shall see on Sunday, because Hull City Stadium proved to be half empty last weekend in a rugby league mad city. So we can debate what's going on there with, is it the right locations? Are they ticketing at the right price? Are they promoting in the right areas? Could they do more to attract, new fans, etc., etc.? Great golden opportunity. Jared Hayne hasn't reported for pre-season training at Parramatta, so what's going on in the NRL with Jared Hayne? Big, interesting talking point. Really interesting talking point. All that fanfare, him going back to rugby league from the NFL, where it didn't really work out. There's some off-field allegations against Jared Hayne. He goes to Gold Coast, which ruffles the feathers of some up the wrong way. Doesn't work out there. He really flatters to deceive. Goes to Parramatta, boyhood club, played a long period of time there before 2014. And it's hit and miss. There's some good performances, some bad performances. He got better towards the end of the season, but again, struggled in pre-season, beginning of the season. Hasn't reported to pre-season training this time around. So, question marks over Jared Hayne's future in the NRL. Will he go to Super League? Will he go to Rugby Union? Will he retire? Will he find another team? Big question marks there over Jared Hayne and his future. and we could debate Jared Hayne and look at Jared Hayne as an enigma, because he is. He is an enigma, exceptionally talented player, but exceptionally flawed individual and player as well. Um, and you know, we can debate the pros and cons of his career and his skill set till the end of time. Could his time in the NRL be at an end? And could he, because he's getting older now, he's over 30. He's on, he'll be asking for big money. Parramatta got him at below market value, so there were concerns that they breached NRL rules in signing him to his last contract. So we'll have to see what happens with Jared Hayne, but it's not looking good that he'll stay at Parramatta, and it'll be interesting to see if he ends up at another NRL team quickly. So we'll have to see on what happens with Jared Hayne. But it is an interesting talking point. But yeah, there's a lot going on. Leicester City will be playing their first game since what happened last weekend. They got their postponed League Cup tie to play against Southampton as well, which will determine whether one of those teams gets into the quarterfinal. And there's still ongoing wrangling about various things to do with what happens and comments made by reporters and crash team investigators. They've removed the wreckage now, so they will have a better idea of what caused the fatal accident. And I wouldn't be surprised if rules are changed over aircraft around stadiums and helicopters at some point as a result of this crash investigation. And any rule and law changes that will be enforced. Was the accident avoidable? We will find out. From what is coming out, the owner's son is going to try and continue with how the club has been run in that kind of same vein. So there's some positives that have come out of this. There is some, positives that have come out, but obviously the overwhelming negative was this avoidable as well, and the sad passing of 5 people. So that's interesting. Some interesting trolling the last couple of days. I'm not offended by their comments. I'm actually offended by their poor grammar and lack of spelling, really. Some of the comments were pretty vile, but I found them laughable because they just could not spell. Giving me death threats and slurs and stuff. If you can't spell, I'm not going to take you seriously. To be honest, it just shows what an ill-educated, knuckle-dragging yobbos you are. I find it really funny. And I'll do a video just trolling you guys and see how you like being trolled, because you clearly, don't like it. I'm all open for disagreement and debate, but when you go down to base level slurring, homophobic, racist, sexist, whatever kind of slur it is, if you can't spell properly, your argument is flawed. I find it really funny how people find it, acceptable to send this kind of abuse, but they wouldn't do it in the street, and I bet their mums are really proud of them. And you just get automatically put in the spam folder or inappropriate file, and then you are sent off to the YouTube police. So you haven't really got yourself any attention apart from making yourself look like a fool. What else? What other interesting topics are there in sport? Yeah, the Hibs Heart derby, I think, is a big talking point, and also stadium security is a big talking point, with a pitch invader at Man United having imitation firearms, getting through security and getting on the pitch. He has since been detained under Mental Health Act, but that is a concern. Stadium security, again, what happened at the Hibs Hearts derby in Edinburgh, again with missiles being thrown from the crowd, and crowd disturbances there. Stadium security is in the hot seat and hotlight again, spotlight again, and I don't know what's going to happen going there. Hello, Casey. I haven't read your second comment on what happened at Hull, but that's a coach throwing his toys out the pram, because that's poor coaching. Players play well or badly depending on fitness, health, and confidence. But basically going out there and just saying 3/4 of my team are shit is basically what he said. They're not going to want to play for him. And they wonder why, he wonders why they're not winning games. Well, that's called poor coaching. Simple as it's called poor coaching. At this level, you can't buy a league. There are salary caps in place. So I don't know what he's going to try and achieve by trying to sign better players who may actually be happy where they are, earning a bit less money. They lost to a local rival. They want to go into the Elite League. That's not how you get into the Elite League, by throwing your toys out the pram. when you lose a cup game. Um, that's not how you're seen as a professional organisation when you basically say I'm going to fire the whole team. It doesn't work like that because that some of those players have been there for a long time and have a good rapport with the fans. So I think he's stupid. Um, he's not at the high enough level in the game to. Yeah, but he's basically you can be critical of your team's performance. Say we weren't good enough. We were beaten on the day. We were beaten on the night. Whatever. But the fact he's basically gone and thrown his team under the bus, the team that he put together. Bear in mind, at this level of hockey, the coach scouts the players with his coaching staff and signs them. So he was happy with the players from last year that wanted to re-sign, and he brought in new players into the team. So it's his team. He chose these players. He warranted giving these players a place. He said, "Right, you performed well for me last year. Here's your place." So this is actually on him. It's not as if in the NHL level where you've got GMs who are in charge of finding talent. This is down to the coach. There are rules on how many players you can sign. I know Bracknell have had a bit of player rotation. We have got one player seriously injured with a neck injury, so we've signed that utility import. I think we're doing an import rotation because we have the budget to do so. But you are only allowed to have 2 imports on a match night team. So I don't know if an import player will want to sit out for games at a time at this level. I really don't know if they're going to be happy to do that. Neil Lennon got hit by a coin. I didn't see the incident, but I've read about the incident. Neil Lennon is a fiery character. He's a divisive character in football. But when he was at Celtic, he received death threats and bomb threats and bullets in the post. He got hit by a missile. There could be a bit of a sectarian element to it, but it raises the question of football violence on the rise. It raises the question on stadium security. And with what happened with Mourinho and his bust up on the touchline, you'd think managers might behave a little better when they're all the away team, knowing that you have a hostile crowd, the atmosphere could get violent. There could be, the issue of crowd disturbances. I do think that Neil Lennon was asking for trouble with some of his antics. But at the same time, does he deserve being coined? Probably not. I mean, the amount of abuse I've received the last 2 days for my Dan Rowan video. I'm not offended by the abuse, even though some of the comments said I should die of AIDS, I should be gang raped in prison, I look like a paedophile, all this kind of shit. Was they couldn't spell, which is what I find really funny. I don't give a fuck about being trolled because I just find it funny that most of these trolls, A, have no content, B, are probably a 45-year-old virgin living in their mum's basement, and they also can't spell. So it just shows what Neanderthal cave trolls they are. And I'll be doing a video on why I don't get offended by trolls because they can't spell. So there are some people who watched that video, about 7, a minimum of 7, who disliked it, who basically are condoning what he said, basically saying, so if one of their relatives or friends was to die in a horrific accident like that, and the reporter basically, because they're so and so, they and smeared their character, it's okay. That's basically what anyone who was agreeing with Dan Rowan said is suggesting, that it's okay to think ill about the dead and to smear the dead, which is offensive to those who are living relatives and friends. Basically, it just highlights some issues within not just British society but Western society right now, and the rise of morons, basically. I'm not really overly offended by the trolling that I received. I'm more offended by their poor grammar and lack of spelling. I mean, I actually had a teacher who said I could write abusive things as long as I spelt it correctly. If I was going to write an abusive oh, look, I was a massive pick, not a prick, because the guy couldn't spell. Then he edited his name after I deleted the comment. I didn't even delete the comment. He deleted it. He then said, I hope I died of AIDS. I was a puff. I deserve to be raped. All this kind of shit. And he still couldn't spell. So I'm like, okay, you can disagree with me, which is what these dislikes are. People are disagreeing with me possibly saying that he should be fired. But to go out and basically say, someone deserves to be gang raped, get AIDS, die, whatever it may be, they could not spell. It just shows how ill-educated and ignorant some people are. I can have a disagreement with someone and say, I think this player's this and they think that player's that. I had that in that comment section. I'm more than happy to disagree. And for those who say the Carragher incident wasn't as bad, well, he was disciplined straight away. He was thrown under the bus by his own employer and the BBC went after him, and he's still technically suspended. And I did a video saying why he should also be fired. So, yeah, I don't get the fact that there's a playlist for a reason and people can just, there you go. But there you go. The fact that, I think he meant what he said. And I think he tried to defend it by saying, it was off camera, but the Sky cameraman clearly knew what he was saying and had turned it on, or had been around him on sports reports before and realised this guy is dynamite and I could get an absolute mint. And I wouldn't be surprised if that cameraman and that Sky reporter have got a massive pat on the back from their editor for catching a rival broadcaster screwing up. I honestly believe that, he's walked into that one because he's made comments at the Crew Alexandra. So he's not welcoming Crew. He's not welcoming Leicester. He's running out of places he is welcome. And yeah, there are a minority who are defending what he said or his actions. And to be fair, some of them have a decent argument saying, well, people were thinking it. And yeah, there are a minority of people who would have probably thought that. To me, I don't give a toss what a rich man does or a poor man, as long as it doesn't affect me. I couldn't care if he's got mistresses galore. I really couldn't. I couldn't care if the guy was gay. I could not care what the rich and famous do, and I couldn't care what the poor and meek do, as long as A, it's legal, and B, it's got nothing to do with me. It doesn't pass my mind. It might pass some people's minds. Fair enough. But at the same time, that Sky reporter clearly told his cameraman, turn that camera on. This guy is a pot of gold for us. And it's proven to be for Sky. But notice the Sky YouTube video with the comments on has been taken down. Do you know why? Because the BBC gives out the operating licenses to channels in this country, which is a flawed system. There has been loads of trolls. All those comments went straight into the spam file for review, and all of them were reported to YouTube. So whatever good that does, but the fact that keyboard warriors are there, but if they were to say that in the street, they're probably getting stabbed. Not gonna lie. You would say that something in the street to someone in London or Birmingham, you're probably gonna get a kicking or a stabbing. So this is where they feel safe on a keyboard, because they wouldn't have the balls to say that in public because they're going to get their heads caved in. That is pretty much what trolling is. It got deleted. It got dealt with. I think channel moderators might have seen it as well and put it in there. You also get automatic moderation as well. So it automatically moderates for you when it picks up certain phrases and words of an offensive content or spam content. It's gone into the offensive spam review file, and it doesn't make the light of day, because why should I justify having that on there? I might actually allow some of the trolls on there so they can highlight how moronic they actually are, and then you guys control them back, because it'd be kind of fun. But then it just escalates and it gets stupid. So we just find abusive things, get rid of them, report it. Trolling is a thing. I've done my advice for YouTube videos, and I say, look, you're going to get them. Most of the people who send out abusive comments and abusive emails don't actually have the balls to sit in front of a camera and say it themselves. They sit behind a keyboard because they're weak individuals, because most bullies are inherently flawed individuals who have some psychological problem. And, either they're attention seeking because they're mentally ill, or they're attention seeking because mummy and daddy didn't love them enough. I don't know. They have issues. That's what bullies are. Bullies are actually inherently lonely individuals, as I found out. They're inherently alone. They're inherently flawed individuals. And they think they're popular, but deep down, they're not. They use fear to try and, keep friends. They use kind of like fakeness to get friends. And at the end of the day, they are actually inherently lonely individuals who self-harm. So and their self-harm is their loneliness, because yeah, that's my view on trolling. It's attention seeking. It's become more prevalent because the internet is hard to police. And look, I'm a middling YouTuber. There are athletes out there like Wilfred Zaha and Karen Carney getting actual death threats on a daily basis that do have some meaning because either their gender or their race, and people are actually threatening them say, well, we're going to rape and kill you, basically. A YouTuber like me getting it, I don't care. I don't care. I highlight the issue, and I will be doing a video highlighting the issue of trolls and why I'm offended by their poor spelling, and I'm going to make it funny so people can just laugh at these people. But in a deeper sense, there is a concern because people have given these death threats to public figures, be it sportsmen and women, celebrities, politicians, public servants, business people, and then someone has acted on that and then gone on to murder. Joe Cox, the MP, for example, gone on to murder said individual. So there is a concern that the more high-profile people get, the more serious this can be because it's led to someone being assassinated in public life in the last couple of years. That's the state that we are in right now. Yes, Swindon are lucky that some of their players are UK born or UK trained in part, so they're not classed as import players. That's probably why Swindon have always had a solid team. Whatever level they've played at is they've realised they've found a loophole in the rules and they've got these players in. And they've worked out they can sign these players and not breach league rules. I wouldn't be surprised at some point they do change what the import rules are, and it has to go by nationality. But I couldn't tell you. I think it'd be a close game. I would say 3-2 to the Peterborough Phantoms. I think they look slightly better against Bracknell. They could close out a win in regulation, whereas Swindon had to go to overtime. So I would think the Phantoms might edge it in 60 minutes. I just think they got that little bit more, and they haven't been shut out against Streatham. So I think they have that little bit more just grind, I think. Whether they're the more skilled team or not is another thing, but they seem to have that little bit more just digging in, I think. At the death of a game, they can dig in, they can defend when they need to, but they do show some wobbles against us in the league. So again, you have to bear that in mind. There were a few wobbles for the Phantoms there. They did go through patches in the game where they didn't look great and they could have got blown out, but they fought back. They've got that tenacity that I think other teams are lacking. But it'd be interesting to see what happens. Cup games are cup games, and they are a kettle of they are random events. It's not like a regular league grind. I think I honestly do believe that cup games are one-offs. They're more unpredictable. The style of play is different, and I think the refereeing is slightly different as well. But that's my personal opinion. That's from what I observe over the years. But I could be wrong. I mean, but it's a different style of play. There's different plays done. More teams are a bit more cagey. Some teams are more open. Some teams find the pressure too much. Some teams thrive on that kind of difference in environment. So I'd be interested to see what happens. But I'm going for a tight game, and I do think they might win. You really want Matthews to ref? Are you insane? Looking at his performance against Basingstoke, you really do not want Matthews to ref. He missed a lot of severe dirty play and allowed the end of the game between Bracknell and Basingstoke to get out of control somewhat. I'm hoping you have actually watched my critical videos of Matthews as a referee. The only way to grow a sport and to improve a sport is also to improve the quality of refereeing. And I keep highlighting this, and I know you're joking, but on a serious note, the quality of refereeing, if you want to increase the profile of sport, increase the participation in the sport, you also have to improve the quality of officiating. Because the players may have reached a certain level, but if the officials haven't caught up, then the players get frustrated. The fans are left confused about what is going on. But at least Evans is consistent. That is the difference. Evans is different than Matthews. He lets a lot of things go. He will allow the players to get a bit rough and tumble, but he is consistent. I will back Evans in that. He is consistent. Whether he's a good referee or not, he is consistent in the calls that he regularly makes. He's not changing his style. Matthews, just any given day, he could have a good game or a terrible game, or even in the game, he could be good and bad. And so that's open for debate whether, having Matthews as a ref is good. Evans, he may be criticised by some, but he is consistent. So I'm not going to criticise him on his consistency on what he calls the game. Sometimes he lets it flow, sometimes he's on it. But at the same time, he is consistent in his calls. He's calling everything the same. If he sees a high stick, he's calling it. If if he sees a hook penalty, he's got to call it. So in that respect, yeah, he's consistent regularly. There are other refs, some of them ref in the Elite League and come down. Others, I forget their names, but Matthews and Evans are ones that regularly ref Bracknell games that I've seen over the years. There are others floating around of various levels of interest. Again, I'm going to have to do my research. There's not many, is the answer, because the game is growing quicker, I think, than officials can keep up. Boardman is another one. He's, I think, really decent and is showing some good signs of possibly being able to take that step to Elite League level refereeing. But because the sport has suddenly had a new lease of life with players like Liam Kirk and Ben O'Connor having, playing abroad and getting drafted and things like this, and British teams doing well in the Champions Hockey League and the British national side doing so well, there's a new lease of life for the sport. So a lot of kids now interested. There's all these youth programs to get kids involved in playing and watching the sport. The level of refereeing has to keep up pace with the level of renewed interest in the sport and the rise in quality of the sport and fitness level and quality and speed. And it's not at the moment. And there are ways to do that. You can get more ex-players to go into an officiating course. Sitch Cunningham, for one, is an ex-player as a linesman. And he is an ex-player at the Hornets. I think he had to retire. I think funding, cost him his prolonged development. And he wasn't the best player, but he knows the game. So Sitch Cunningham as an ex-player, as a linesman, will he be a referee one day? I hope so, because he actually knows how to officiate the game. He's got a good rapport with the players. The players respect him because some of them may have actually played with him and know what he's like on the ice as a player, so they know what they can and can't get away with when he's assisting the referee and calling the game. There's a good rapport with Sitch Cunningham there. That's the type of official we need. Young ex-players who didn't necessarily make the grade at senior level, who continue to want to contribute to the sport. And that's across the board for all sports. There's an issue with recruiting officials to ref and officiate games. There is a problem because of the amount of abuse that referees and linesmen receive on a regular basis from, again, that minority of fans. Instead of just being critical of a poor decision, they regularly send them threatening letters, emails, death threats. They get it. And it's something that sport and society as a whole needs to tackle, because it's getting to the point now where the social media companies are failing, such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They are failing. But at the same time, society is failing because people feel that it's acceptable, that they think they can get away. What people fail to realise is the authorities have IP tracking software. So if enough complaints are raised against an individual, regardless if they change their username, their IP tracking software can pretty much figure out with their IP address who they are. So they're not anonymous. It's an issue that needs to be tackled. It's highlighting some of the ills of society. Yes, I do agree with freedom of speech, but I don't agree with using that freedom of speech to incite violence against people. There is a point where you go, you are a dick. But the best advice I can give for anyone receiving who is a YouTuber, I'm sure Mike's received some crappy comments from people, hence why moderators are a thing now on the chat, because we had so many idiots beginning of the year, or earlier in the year, sorry, getting on live streams and basically derailing them. And I don't like our Halloween jersey. I really don't. That you can't see the names properly on the back. I know they're a one-off, and I know that they are reasonably pretty cool. It's like Basingstoke's Christmas jersey, though, last year. It's hit and miss. They are ugly jerseys, and ugly jerseys are generally seen as really desirably collectible, ironically, which is just obscene. But if I can be honest, I'm not overly sold, on the Halloween jersey. I liked our charity jerseys last year, and I thought that design with the colour scheme with the shoulders and the body should have been our main jersey. And towards the end, it was our cup jersey in design, basically. I think that's what I would have liked to see at this year's jersey, but they've gone with the traditional jagged striping. I would have to say time out, just block them. If they're constantly just posting crap, just block them straight away. Don't time them out, because time them out, they're timed out for half hour, 5 minutes, whatever the timeout settings are, and they just keep posting crap. So I just block them, report them, and block them. Just go, it's abusive, it's crap, it's spam, whatever it is, and then that goes to the human moderators, and they then work out, what actually is acceptable or not, and if there is threatening behaviour, they go further. It's just my piece of advice from what I've seen when I've been moderating on other people's channels. I tend to go, right, that just get rid of him, sod the timeout, just get rid of him. It's easier. You put them in timeout, that gives them time to create so many accounts. The more you're getting rid of them quick, they have less time to make accounts, so they stay away for longer. Yeah, I know. I've seen one or two comments that I've had to in the last couple of live streams. I've had to go, nah, I'm not having that. Partly because I think I'm more on the ball when it comes to abuse coming my way, because I've had so much of it on certain videos. There's only about 3 or 4 videos where I've received a large amount of crap, and it is the Battle of the Mars in Gold tonight. That's going to be interesting. Which one comes out on top? But moderators, a lot of people say too many moderators in the chat keeps the trolls away. Well, yeah. Some people say it's a dead chat. No, it just keeps the trolls away. When they see all the blue spanners, they know they're not going to win because they're just not going to win. Sometimes it automatically goes to review without even having to be, moderated, because they're just stupid in how they word it. YouTube has an algorithm that picks up offensive phrases or words in not just English but multiple languages depending on source of origin. So when they're slagging you off, it gets highlighted. It goes, and it's gone. Depends on your settings, but I've set it so it flags phrases and words, so it comes up straight away, and then I can just go through it. It's very rare that I actually get trolls these days. Actually, to be fair, it's only on certain videos on certain divisive topics, like Dan Rowan. But Dan Rowan, I don't think to me is divisive. Is it as bad as Carragher? Well, Carragher had been harassed by that individual for a good 10 miles by the time he reacted, and people forget that. But he was thrown under the bus by not only Sky, but the BBC went after Sky, saying that this is what they hire. And Sky seems to have a problem. And I was exceptionally critical of Sky Sports and Sky for the staff it regularly hires and the culture issue within Sky. And people forget that. They need to watch that video and need to see my reaction to what I felt was a grubby organisation getting ripped to shreds by another grubby organisation, which is what the BBC is. The only time I've had to deal with really shitty people is when it's a controversial topic involving race or gender, or in this case, death. For the most part, I'm all right. It's only about 3 or 4 videos ever that I've had real abusive crap. And I admit, the camera quality on this webcam isn't great. And I had some guy going, slagging me off on the Tranmere promotion video. But for the most part, people are like, you are a troll. And he's now on the list, as I call it, of morons. And that list keeps growing, which is just sad, because now it's over 150 names of people, or dummy accounts, or fake accounts, or bot accounts that are listing, and the list gets longer every day. And I wouldn't be surprised if half those accounts have now been blocked and deactivated by the website YouTube. But I don't. It's an interesting one. It's a never-ending battle. Is it a battle that could be won? I hope so. I honestly do. Because, I mean, the amount of sportsmen and women who are saying they are receiving threatening messages against them. It takes one person to read that tweet, that YouTube comment, that Instagram, be a follower, to seek out and then try and do something stupid. And then when that does happen, which it will, I have no doubt, that someone's going to try and act upon a vile comment, which may be said in anger, because some fans do get very passionate and frustrated, but others just generally are racist, homophobic, sexist, misogynist thugs, and goes out and commits a violent act against a sportsman or woman on the field or in public. The shit will hit the fan, and we're going to reach a crossroads. I'm used to receiving abuse. It doesn't bother me. I am quick-witted, and to be fair, I'm not offended by what they said. I'm more offended by their poor grammar and poor spelling. That's basically what I'm going to put in my anti-troll videos. I'm more offended by by your poor spelling and poor grammar. It just highlights how much of an ignorant fuck you are. That's basically what I'm going to say in my video at some point. But yes, Mike, you have to be careful with who your moderators are. If someone asks, "Can I be a moderator?" they're not going to be a moderator. I have to see, A, are they regularly in live streams? B, what are their general, do they disagree or agree with my comments? And if they disagree politely and we can have a debate, that's fine. They can be a moderator. If they, when they disagree, start abusing, they're gone. If they're not regularly in live streams, I'm not going to have them as a moderator. That's how I select you guys, because we have a good rapport. We both actually have content, so we make our own videos, so we know what to look out for. Yeah, just say no. Rules of channel: do not ask to be a moderator. You will not get accepted. The more you ask, the less likely. The more you ask, you're blocked. Because I've seen it happen with other channels where they used to allow people who volunteered, and then they went, no, we're now picking them ourselves from people we see in chats, in comment sections, regularly sending us fan mail. They're the ones that we want because they're interacting and they have their own channels, they have their own content, we have a good rapport. When people constantly, demand to be made a moderator, they're probably on another channel trolling someone, and no. It's difficult because I have friends who are subscribers to the channel, and I've met subscribers, by accident. I've actually gained subscribers by accident. Whether or not, I suppose you're more likely to get trolls the more popular you get as well. I find that the more popular you are, the more jealous people get. It's what I find really funny. I have no issue disagreeing with people. That's why I like having the sports debate. And people can say, I think you're wrong. I like this player. Or, what do you think on this player? So, well, this is my opinion, but it's subjective. And that's basically what reviewing sports is. It is subjective. You could say, Man City won't win the league this year because De Bruyne is injured. Other people come back and say, well, look at their form without him so far this season when he has been injured. It's subjective. That's a disagreement. That's a debate. You could say Tottenham Stadium rebuild and putting all the money in that rather than transfers could harm the team. Some of my friends who are see, there you go. You see, again, someone demanding to be a moderator was told, no, you're not a moderator. This is my channel, a joint channel. And he went, oh, and I went, and bye-bye. Yeah, simple. It's not how you ingratiate yourself. I volunteered. If you want a moderator or someone to assist, I'm happy if you want to discuss. But I don't ask, make me a moderator. There's a way of asking as well, which can sort of hint at this guy's got good intentions or bad intentions. This is another reason why a lot of female YouTubers or female subscribers hide their identity to avoid the sexist trolls or the rape threats. I notice on my viewership and what demographics, I know I have women subscribers. I know I have women comments, women watching, but they hide their identity by saying they're men to protect themselves online. And that is a common thing as well. A lot of people lie about their age as well to avoid, being targeted for being older or younger. So when I look at my data, it's actually a flawed system because people lie about their gender or age, either to get a YouTube account or a Facebook account or whatever, a social media account, or to protect themselves from online abuse. That's how worrying it is that people are even lying to get on supposedly safe places like YouTube because they fear being abused. And I know some female YouTubers get a hell of a lot of abuse. Hell of a lot. And, it seems to be going unchecked at the moment, the amount of abuse some of these women and minorities get. A lot of people, try and hide their IPs to hide the country they're from for whatever reason. But it is what it is. I'm just going to take my hoodie off. I'll be back in a sec. Oh, and we're back. Yeah, I think if you have a joint YouTube and you're trying to build something and you get this moderator and he gets a bit power hungry as well and you don't really know him that well, it is funny, but it isn't. At the same time, he's harming the channel. He's harming what the channel's about and what the channel wants to be. And I know you're a younger YouTuber, and the best advice I can give is just keep reporting the abuse as it comes in. Then the human moderators that YouTube now has can build a catalogue of what's going on and why it's going on. But it is a shame that it is happening. Massive shame. I know we can, as fans, be critical of players and officials from the stands and say, "You're shit, mate. You're crap. Look at you. You're a donkey." Some of it is done in good humour. Some of it, is aimed at dislikable players or the opposition, and it happens. But it's when it goes further that after the game, a player's had a bad performance, for example, and receives death threats, like the Champions League final. That was pretty cheap. Is Karius a good goalkeeper? No. Does he deserve to have he and his family threatened? No. Did he have to leave Liverpool because he just had enough? Yes. Do I blame him? No. Did Jurgen Klopp do the right thing by getting him out of a situation that could have proved not so nice, considering what's happened with players on Merseyside before with burglaries and assault? He's done the right thing. Klopp has got him out of a dangerous situation, got him away. But the police had to investigate those threats because threats were made, and they've looked to the past at the amount of players who've been burgled in the Merseyside area in football, both from Everton, Man United, and other clubs, and they had to take action because there's a problem there with that kind of thing in the Northwest. Karen Carney, female football player, yeah, some of the stuff. I mean, she actually did well in that game as well. We won that game. Some of the abuse she received during and post game was pretty abhorrent and was been getting worse over time. Again, worrying. And then Wilfred Zaha after the game at the weekend. Did he dive? Did he not dive? It's a debate on modern football, like what is a dive these days and what is a free kick and a penalty. But again, colour of his skin and his ethnic background gets racist death threats saying we'll hang you and lynch you. So the problem is there. And social media has made it easier now for these kind of things to happen. 20 years ago, you had to send death threats by mail, and mail leaves DNA. Handwriting can give it away. No, there are some players that I've generally disliked, and there are some on and off the ice and have a bad rapport with fans and coaches. It's in any sport, and on and off, away from, on the field or on the ice, or in the court and off the court, off the ice, off the field. There are some players who generally are abhorrent individuals and are not very nice individuals, and there are some who actually generally are nice people, but their role is to agitate, and that's how they play the game. They play the game on the edge, but away from the game. They're like, "How you doing? This is our charity drive. This is whatever it may be. This is our back to school program, whatever it may be." But yeah, I think there's a borderline between at a game when the fans, mock the opposition or chant, like we did at the weekend. And but the rise of social media has made it easier to send threatening behaviour, to threatening messages. It is harder to police, but people have been prosecuted for sending death threats and threatening behaviour via the internet, and have been given restraining orders and a variety of things. It is a difficult one. It's harder to police. It's harder to keep that under control. 20 years ago, yeah, parcel bombs and letter bombs, but they do leave a DNA fingerprint. Whereas online, you could be at a library doing it, accessing through a mate's account, whatever. It's harder to police, but it is an issue, and it's not going away, and it doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. And yeah, well, at this level of hockey, a lot of the players, they do have second jobs. They do have university courses they attend. They are, trying to supplement their income with anything possible, such as being personal trainers, sports science, building jobs, you name it, they do it. Plumbing, electricians, driving jobs, all sorts. They do it. I suppose it gives them a career after the sport as well. But when some of your colleagues are looking you up on YouTube because someone's gone around work or around the training course, this guy actually plays sport and he's a hard nut. You can see he's going to be a disciplinarian in the schoolroom. Like, yeah, you're misbehaving. Just this is what I do. This is what I do in my spare time. This is what I do as a hobby. I do this. If more high-level athletes were to get involved in things like this, like training and going through what everyday people have to go through, I think they would get more respect than what some of them do, and they may justify some of their pay brackets. It's a good question to raise, and it's a good point to raise. As I'm not a Wildcats fan, I'm not obviously as into the team as you are, and I don't know as much about the players as you do. But it is interesting that he obviously wants to train to be a teacher, and that some of the fellow teachers were just looked him up on YouTube because either one of their other students said, "Hey, by the way, check this out. Check this. This is what our colleague's doing in his spare time. This is why he comes in with black eyes, and this is why he has no teeth." But if more top level professionals were to go on training courses and train to be an electrician or train to be a teacher or train to be a sports scientist or whatever, so they have a career post sport, I think they would be seen to be more humble for the wages they receive, and it may benefit people more, because the debate of post sport, what athletes do, is a big debate, and whether sports could do enough to look after them more, etc., etc., etc. So that's an interesting point that you raise, and it is fun. And hopefully, obviously, does well, and of course, hopefully the kids behave, because then he can point out, this is what I do in my spare time. Yeah, I do this in my spare time. Like, that is important. This is what I'm saying about sport. There is an issue with getting enough officials within the game, and I had this conversation last year in the Bees Club shop grand opening with James Galazzi, and he said there's not enough ex-players refereeing the game or getting involved in the game post-playing, and he would like to see more. If James Galazzi became an official, I would laugh, because he's had so many run-ins with the officials. But he does say that you can tell when an ex-player or a referee's refed at a higher level because the game is refed differently, and he would like to see more ex-players involved with officiating or giving back to the sport. So it doesn't matter, what sport we talk about. There is an issue with getting officials into officiating, because there's just not enough, and it's seen as the older man's kind of role within the sport. So there's not enough up and coming young officials to replace the older officials, as they have to retire because of age. And that's something that I think every sport could look at, is pathway programs into getting ex-players into officiating. We've seen it with a few rugby league and rugby union referees. We've seen it with Henry Perinara, rugby league ref. He was an ex rugby league player in the NRL, and he's one of the best referees that the NRL has in rugby league. But yes, it might be a bit ironic and a bit funny, but I think the players may actually have more respect for an ex-player refereeing than not, because he knows how the game should be played and what has caused that penalty and why the penalty has been given. That is something that, I think not just British ice hockey, but all sport could recognise, is if we get ex-players, it doesn't matter what level, into officiating, it could help the sport grow, or the sport be better. We're finding it in football, rugby league, rugby union, that not enough ex-players are going into the officiating side for whatever reason. It could be to do with money. It could be to do with, is there a pathway program? Is it accessible? Do they want to have that extra abuse? Because we've spoken about online and physical abuse. We've seen what happened to Neil Lennon as a manager. This is something that needs to be considered by all sports in trying to raise the standard, and also when those officials that are already officiating have to retire because of age, or mostly because of age, actually, because most referees are slightly older than the players they're officiating. We shall see. The fact they're advertising refereeing courses is good and bad, because you just get armchair fans who want to become refs. You have to be a decent enough ice skater to referee ice hockey. You can't just be like a football ref. You just have to run. You have to be able to ice skate at pace, and be very hands-on, which you're not in let's say rugby league or rugby union or football. You have to be very, very hands-on with some very, very big individuals. It is interesting. They are obviously considering, a pathway program, but there isn't the money in the sport in the UK. If the bigger leagues like the NHL, for example, were to help with funding, that may alleviate an official's problem, because you know, officiating is a big part of the game, and they need to explore all avenues and how they can increase participation in the sport that way. As I said, Sitch Cunningham as the linesman used to play for the Bracknell Hornets. He decided to go into officiating when his ice hockey career clearly wasn't developing how he wanted, or he just couldn't continue it for whatever reason. He's gone into officiating, which is very, very good. So he's giving back to the sport that gave him something, an opportunity to play. Whether at the end of the day, having ex players is necessarily the best thing is debatable, but it's an avenue that can't be ignored, and it has worked in other sports in the past to some degree. In rugby union, rugby league especially, there's a lot of ex players at the lower levels who are now refereeing at the highest level. So it does work both ways. Refs can get hurt. They have a lot less padding than the players do. We've seen some players deliberately go for the officials and rightly get lengthy bans in all sports, but no, referees have a lot less padding and a lot less protection, and they're less prepared to be flattened as well. They don't realise it's coming, so they can't brace themselves, and and ice hockey especially, and both codes of rugby are known for referees getting occasionally caught up in the rough and tumble. That's happened where one of the officials has gone down. There isn't a spare one. That's another problem again with the sport in the UK. Is again the lack of funding for that extra spare official just to come on in case one does go down hurt. This is why they have the 2-ref system and 2 linesman system in North America, in case one ref does go down hurt. It's accidental. If it's accidental, it happens. It does happen. It's not intentional. It's the deliberate ones that are there that is a concern as well. But all told, the discussion point of getting people to want to officiate and to give them incentives to officiate is, is there. We have seen some pretty diabolical refereeing performances, even in the top level, elite level sport. We have seen some, supposedly elite level referees have some really shocking performances. And there's only 2 countries in football that actually have fully professional referees, and that is us and the Germans. So again, there's a lack of professionalism in officiating in the top level sport. No, but it is very, very interesting. Interesting debating points. Getting more people involved in sport via the officiating route. I think it comes down solely to funding. I think in a lot of cases at lower levels, but also interest. Is the interest there from people to want to do it? And if they are advertising ref courses and courses to get involved in the sport, then by all means, I think they should explore that avenue in order to improve the level of officiating and to improve the level of the sport. Because if a sport playing level improves, the officiating has to follow to keep pace. Otherwise, it's seen as an unbalance, and then it does sometimes detract from the game going forward. What else was I discussing at the beginning of the video? Oh yeah, talking about controversy. So Bradley Wiggins, the cyclist, he's obviously released his book, and he releases in that book. In that book, he names the sporting idols and icons he looked up to when he was a young cyclist in the Tour de France and the peloton before he went on to win the Tour de France. And Lance Armstrong is one of those sporting icons that he names as an inspiration to him. And people stop reading there. They go, oh, no, he likes Lance Armstrong. He's got to be a cheat as well. Oh, it's controversial, blah, 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 blah. He does say the reason why he looked up to Lance Armstrong was Lance Armstrong defeated testicular cancer, which nearly killed him, and got back on the bike. That's where the praise stops. He then is very critical of Lance Armstrong later, but going, but I don't agree with him cheating for a decade. No, I disagree with that entirely. But cycling is a sport that's on so much spotlight right now for drugs cheats and alleged cheats and jiffy bag scandals and governance and, should we give him life bans for repetitive cheating? Like Constable been banned multiple times. Should he get a life ban now? Because he's clearly going to keep doing it. So, yeah, a lot of cyclists are under the spotlight. Chris Froome's under the spotlight. All this this is the sport that has an image problem when it comes to doping. Bradley Wiggins, in releasing his book, has highlighted something. The issues are still there. It's causing a debate, it's causing a discussion, which is not necessarily a bad thing. He's been criticised by some, not all. And if you read the full press release, he is critical of Lance Armstrong as well as praising Lance Armstrong. He praises Lance Armstrong for defeating cancer and getting back into the sport and being successful. He criticised him because he cheated to be successful and he damaged the sport's reputation in the process. I think it's subjective on what you see as a role model. And yeah, I think you could criticise Wiggins. He could have possibly, worded his statement differently, or the press release differently, or the publishers could have said, "Hang on a second, can we do this differently?" But again, this is his story in cycling, and I wouldn't be surprised if, the book sells really well and ignites that debate about what is acceptable within sport. Like, what point is winning at all costs more damaging than helpful for a sport? I think winning at all costs is, really harmed a lot of sports because of the bad cultures that go with that. But at the same time, you've got to win. Sport is about money these days and success. There's not a lot of prizes for second best, but it has been a debating point in the last 24 hours. And he's come under some criticism, and I think that's possibly slightly unfair because a lot of people haven't read the full article. They just read the headline and they jump to conclusions, and bang, they're off on one. And I don't think that's necessarily fair on Bradley Wiggins or what's in the book, because he is critical of Armstrong. And Armstrong's even come out and said if he was a young cyclist today, would he do what he did? And he said no. So the culture shift is happening in cycling, but the damage has also been done in cycling by Lance Armstrong and others. There are other cyclists who have also, and other teams, which have damaged the reputation of once noble sport. But cheating to gain an advantage in doping and stuff like that has always been in cycling. It's became so prevalent in the 90s and the 2000s to a point where when it all came out, the house of cards did come tumbling down quite rapidly. But the debating point on what is allowed in sport as an advantage and not is there. The TUE scandal, therapeutic use exemptions. If you're supposedly that asthmatic, I don't know how you can compete, to be honest, because I have friends who are asthmatic and just walk into the shops damn near kills them. So some of these, I'm so asthmatic, I need an inhaler. I am questioning the abuse of the system to gain an advantage. It's definitely happening. I'm not naive to think it isn't. And if you have to use a therapeutic use exemption, you can't compete. That's one way to remove that as a way of gaining an advantage. If you're allegedly so ill and crippled by asthma, that's where I raise questions about Chris Froome, and I am a bit sceptical. I'm not naive, it goes on. I'm sceptical. And I've been, again, criticised for my views on Chris Froome and having that scepticism. And I am sceptical about Chris Froome. I am sceptical about Bradley Wiggins. And these are, Chris Froome's not even British. He's Kenya, and he was brought up in South Africa. So he really is an archetypal plastic Brit when it comes to sport, and highlights some of our failures in developing our youth at times. Bradley Wiggins, I have been critical of him at times, going in that gift bag scandal. His image is now tainted. I am critical of not just British cyclists, but all cyclists. The fact that Constore has cheated twice and has been banned twice for cheating and is allowed back with open arms into the sport, not an eyelid batted, that's where the sport's going wrong. Is it's too welcoming back of the cheats. It's not saying, okay, you've had your first offence, second offence, double the ban. Simple. Problem solved. Literally problem solved. Make the bans harsher, because some of their excuses are really, it was contaminated this, I drugs. Yes, someone else poured me that drink at that pub. It wasn't me. Some of the excuses are laughable about how they claim they ingested the substance in high enough quantities to be, red flag for doping. It really beggars belief as some of the excuses that they use to try and get out of a doping ban, and in their defence. And it's painful. I think it's more damaging for the sport than just being honest and say, yeah, you caught me. There are David Miller, I think, is a prime example of an athlete who went, "Yeah, you've caught me. I cheated," and he did redeem himself in the years following. It took him. I was I critical of David Miller? Hell yeah, he cheated and he got caught. But instead of trying to go, "Oh, I didn't know how I got to my system," he was like, "Yeah, I got caught." And he did redeem himself by basically giving so many talks about anti-doping. He went on to the I'm going to go anti-doping crusade, and highlight the risks in doing it, and why it's wrong. And he did redeem himself. Others haven't done so. So I have less respect for those that haven't redeemed themselves in a way. But no, it is what it is. There are issues with doping in sport, and Bradley Wiggins has courted that controversy with I think how the book was released, not what's in the book. I think people need to read the full press statement and read the book before jumping to conclusions. But cycling, it's put cycling back under the spotlight, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Much like Usain Bolt at the Gold Coast Mariners, not necessarily a bad thing because now there's interest in the league that wasn't there 6 months ago. And it highlights the league possibly in a positive light, saying, okay, this guy isn't quite up to professional standard. It will be a joke if he was to continue down this route for both him and us. But there's a variety of issues at play here. Anyway, I think I'm going to call this live stream an hour. It's not been a great one. It's not been a bad one. We have some more video content to make. I might come on live again later on this evening or in a bit. And we'll see how we go from there. But for now, goodbye. Thank you for your questions. We've had some interesting debating points. And I'll have some more videos for you guys soon.